All right, the breaking news, Trump naming his pick to head the Department of Defense. That's the Fox News host Pete Hegseth. Hegseth has been a longtime staunch Trump defender. Here he is back in 2020.
This is a president who has said, I want to make America great again. And he's up against the forces of the left who believe that America was never great.
All right, so you can see exactly where he stands, and he has been consistent in that. Hegseth is an Army veteran who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it comes as the Wall Street Journal, of course, this hour is reporting that the Trump transition team is considering a draft executive order which would establish a quote-unquote warrior board of retired senior military personnel with the power to remove 3- and 4-star officers that they want. Out front now, the Democratic Congressman Dan Goldman of New York. He also served as lead attorney for House Democrats during the first Trump impeachment. He's on the Committee for Homeland Security, and we were going to talk about Governor Noem and her role there, but 10 minutes have passed, so the world has changed, and the world has changed in a few ways. First is Pete Hegseth, Trump choosing him, the Fox News host, Pete Hegseth, for Defense Secretary. What do you think?
I'm shocked, truly, and this is exactly what we worried about and we warned about Donald Trump, which is that he is going to appoint unqualified loyalists to shape this government into his own personal fiefdom and get revenge on generals and put essentially really unqualified people. I appreciate Mr. Hegseth's service in our armed forces, but being a serviceman, it does not make you qualified to lead the Department of Defense and to have access to our nuclear weapons. I'm very disturbed by this, and I'm very concerned about what it demonstrates about Donald Trump's priorities, which now seem to be coming true, as many of us warned.
We've been looking here. We really just had this news for just a few moments. So we've been, obviously, as a Fox News host, he said a lot of things over the years. Let me just play a little bit more of what Hegseth has said specifically, Congressman, about Trump. And what I'm going to play now is from 2019.
God has used imperfect people forever because we're all imperfect. But what he has withstood is unlike what really any other mortal could understand.
So that's Pete Hegseth talking about God has used imperfect people there, referring to Trump. Look, he's a television host. There's going to be thousands more of those sorts of things. But what do you hear when you hear that?
Look, that was 2019. That was before January 6th, right? That was before Donald Trump tried to overturn an election. That was before Donald Trump hid classified information in his bathroom and refused to give it back while he was having phone conversations with Vladimir Putin. This guy is clearly a sycophant for Donald Trump and has been his biggest cheerleader on Fox News, the biggest cheerleading network. And that is not what makes one qualified to be a cabinet secretary and secretary of defense. And the fact that Donald Trump thinks that is appropriate is very dangerous for our national security. It's bad enough that you have Kristi Noem, who has zero experience with the border, with Homeland Security, being a governor from South Dakota, heading up our Department of Homeland Security. Now you have a Fox News host who's got his finger on the nuclear weapons. It's very dangerous.
So what do you think about the Hegseth selection as Secretary of Defense in the context of the Wall Street Journal reporting? I want to ask what you think. That reporting, just in case you didn't hear, Congressman, is that Vivian Salama is reporting that they've been working on a potential draft executive order that would give a so-called warrior board the power to remove senior officers, 3- and 4-star officers. So, look, that's a draft, but that's the context here. And you've got now a Secretary of Defense with a name on it, Pete Hegseth from Fox News. So what do you think is going to happen here with the Defense Department?
Well, I think Pete Hegseth is clearly going to do whatever Donald Trump wants him to do. And Donald Trump has made it very clear that he is going to politicize the entire executive branch, the entire federal government. And I'm just hearing about this news now. I'll have to look into this executive order a little bit more. But if it is as you say, and you have retired generals selected by Pete Hegseth, who's essentially an arm of Donald Trump, to target 3- and 4-star generals, who do you think's up first on that list? John Kelly, other, McRaven, other Mark Milley. I mean, these are people who have stood up as patriots for our country and confronted and opposed Donald Trump. And this is what Donald Trump will do to get revenge and retribution against them. And Pete Hegseth is clearly the pawn in Trump's scheme to do that.
All right. Now, as we were speaking, there was just another development. So let me share that with you, Congressman. This is new to me as well. And that is that Trump has just announced that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are going to lead the DOGE, as Elon Musk has referred to it, but that is the Department of Government Efficiency. So that's what Trump is calling. It's unclear exactly what that's going to entail, but they are going to lead it. They have been named. So I guess on this one, take a step back because we don't know much about it other than that. We know Elon's been talking about it for a while on social media. Do you think such a concept being run by someone like Musk from the business world could actually have the potential to be helpful?
I think in the abstract, yes. I do think that our government needs to be streamlined, that we need to make it more effective and more responsive. I do agree with that. I think the conflicts of interest that Elon Musk brings to any government job are beyond the pale. And how can we be sure that Elon Musk is not going to be making efficient everything in favor of his own companies? If he's not going to divest and he's not going to separate himself, and we know he's not because Donald Trump didn't do that as president of the United States, then how can we be sure that he is acting in the interest of the country and not in the interest of himself? So I think Elon Musk is a brilliant businessman. I don't think he belongs running our government, and that appears to be what he's doing right now.
All right. Well, Congressman Goldman, I really appreciate your time, and thank you very much as all this news is coming out for being with me.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to go straight now to Ty Cobb, the former White House lawyer during Trump's first term. So, Ty, all right. Obviously, we have a whole conversation planned here, but I want to give you a chance to respond to this new development. Fox News host Pete Hegseth named as Trump's choice for defense secretary. Does that surprise you?
Oh, yes, of course it surprised me. I don't know Mr. Hegseth well, and I do know that he's a veteran with a distinguished service record and obviously deserves our thanks for that. But I think we're seeing, not across the board. You've got some excellent and capable people like Marco Rubio,
Yep.
who's well qualified to be Secretary of State. And yes, he's conservative. Yes, he's a Republican. But elections have consequences. But I think in some of these lower down, that's not really lower down. It doesn't get much higher than Secretary of Defense, I guess. But in some of these subsequent nominations, I think we're seeing a lot of Bronny Jameses and not many Steph Currys.
We're obviously Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, but so in the context here of what's at stake, and you talk about elections having consequences, this is what the American people voted for, to give Trump the ability to do this, and he is doing it. The former vice president, Mike Pence, spoke out today publicly, and he was more direct than he usually is. Ty, as you know, he often chooses not to be, but now he is. He specifically said that he doesn't, urging Trump to not pardon January 6th rioters. Obviously, some of whom, of course, threatened to hang Mike Pence. He told the Dispatch, and I quote, "I don't think the president should pardon anyone who assaulted a police officer at the United States Capitol on January 6th. Now, obviously, as I said, the chants among some of those rioters were hang Mike Pence. So what do you think? Trump has said he's going to pardon most or almost all of the January 6th rioters. He's called them hostages. He's posted free the January 6th hostages on social media. What do you think he'll do?
Well, I don't think anybody in our history has, more tarnished the rule of law than Donald Trump, and I don't think it restrains him at all. The concept that he might do that again. I think it's highly possible that he will go forward with these pardons. I would join the choir with the former vice president, who I respect and know to be a man of great character and who loves his country. I think this would be a tragic event, further demeaning the rule of law to those of us in this country, and it's not going to go unseen around the world. I mean, this is the type of conduct that, when viewed internationally, makes it impossible to distinguish the United States from a third world country or a South American dictatorship. This is really lawlessness of the highest order, and there's no principled basis for it. I think it'd be a very sad event.
So, Ty, all right, let me just ask you about the New York hush money case. I know that there's a big
Sure.
development there. Judge Juan Merchan just announced he is delaying Trump's sentencing, and he hasn't decided whether he's going to wipe the conviction away altogether. Obviously, he's got the Supreme Court's immunity ruling, a decision on that. But you say that the New York governor, Kathy Hochul, Democrat, obviously, could make a big play here. What is it?
Well, she could pardon him. I think Judge Merchan and postponing this, asking for guidance from the prosecution as to how best to proceed, if at all, kicks the can down the road in a way that doesn't eliminate the ability of the Trump team to appeal these convictions and try to create the perception that there was no legitimacy to the prosecution, even though they do have an argument based on that under the law. Mm-hmm. But she could take that all away from the newly elected president by pardoning him. If she pardons him, there'll be no appeal. There'll be no court of appeals to overturn any opinion. The convictions will be there in history forever, with an asterisk saying that he was pardoned.
So can I ask you one quick thing before we go?
Sure.
Back in the last election, it was lock her up, and then he did not obviously pursue that with Hillary Clinton. This time, though, he said his critics should be arrested for treason. He said it countless times. Jim Jordan, Judiciary Chair, is saying he's not going to do that. But obviously, he singled out President Biden, Liz Cheney, former President Obama, Adam Schiff, the entire January 6th committee as people who've engaged in treason. So do you think that Trump will actually target them legally?
So I actually do not. On the other hand, this warrior board sounds like targeting, and it sounds very menacing to me. Now, and it also seems totally irrelevant because Trump already has the power to fire any general he wants.
Right.
Keep in mind, Obama fired Stanley McChrystal. Famously, Truman fired MacArthur. So this is a process in search of a problem. It's not necessary. Trump has the power already to do it if he wants to. And I think this would have a very chilling effect within the military and further politicize a military where one of the most important things we've avoided is having a politicized military and a military that's been under civilian rule.
All right. Well, Ty Cobb, thank you very much. And
nice to be with you, Aaron.
All right, you too. And China now beefing up nuclear forces and teaming up with Putin to take on the U.S. We are live in Moscow after this.